a young man awakened a strange skill. However, other than making his stomach rumble with hunger, it had no other use. But one day, when he stabbed a thief to death, the skill he thought was useless underwent a transformation. His stats skyrocketed suddenly, and he simultaneously obtained the appraisal and mind reading skill. His stomach no longer felt hungry, it turned out his gluttony skill wasn't based on eating food as the name suggested, but rather on devouring the souls of those he killed, thereby stealing the victim's skills and stats. This meant that starting today, Fate's life had taken a major turn in a world where skill superiority is absolute. Those who haven't awakened a skill are classified as the low class. Not only was his gluttony skill useless for violence, combat, but it also kept him constantly starving, making him an increasing burden. That afternoon, a group of holy knights returned to the city after a monster farming run. Rumor has it these are the three siblings of the Berserk family. This group always uses the title of holy knight to bully innocent people. Just because an old man accidentally dropped an orange on his foot, he was physically assaulted without mercy. Furthermore, his entitled sister threatened to wipe the old man out if he dared show attitude to a holy knight. Witnessing this eyesore, the Adventurers Guild, though red-eyed with anger, dared not do anything. Fate, starving at the moment, had to endure and wait for the shift change. Just then, the Berserk trio arrived at the city gate. Because they had hired Fate to handle the trash before, they were now going to pay him a little remuneration for his efforts. The eldest, Ruffle, threw the money on the ground and ordered Fate to pick it up. He did this deliberately to humiliate Fate. Like many times before, possessing no fancy skills, he could only lie there and take the beatings, while they claimed they were retraining his character, so Fate wouldn't dare fight back. While Fate was taking a beating, a female holy knight named Roxy appeared to stop the action. She asserted that treating citizens like that was not acceptable behavior at all. By rights, guarding the gate should be the duty of the three siblings. However, Ruffle argued stubbornly that he was just creating a job for Fate to earn extra money. Not wanting to argue with Roxy, the three finally agreed to withdraw. When saved by Roxy, Fate felt she was no different from a youth idol. Roxy delicately used a handkerchief to treat the wounds on his face. Since they were fellow gatekeepers, Roxy deeply understood the hardships Fate endured. Leaving Roxy, Fate hurried to fill his empty stomach. He understood well that Ruffle would use every trick to bully him, so no matter how kind Roxy was, he didn't want her to get involved. Fate lamented that this gluttony skill was useless, bringing nothing but useless hunger. Fate himself yearned for better luck to possess more powerful skills. If he couldn't be a holy knight, at least let him be a warrior or a merchant. Just then, Fate saw a few bandits sneaking into the city like thieves. He rushed to find Roxy. Upon hearing Fate's report, Roxy went pale. As if she had lost her rice ration, she immediately asked Fate to guard the gate so she could go confront the thieves. Fate knew Roxy was strong enough to one-punch them to the afterlife, so he felt reassured. But life is not a dream. A heavily injured thief rushed towards Fate, almost giving him PTSD. Fate told himself he was trusted by Roxy to guard the gate. If he let this guy escape, Roxy might be reprimanded. Thinking this, Fate gripped his weapon as if carrying the burden of saving the world, then suddenly delivered a finishing blow, sending the bandit logging off immediately, without a chance to leave last words. Just then, Fate's gluttony skill was unexpectedly activated by the system. Fate's stats skyrocketed magically, and the bandit's appraisal and mind-reading skills were transferred to his body. Fate was still dazed, not understanding what had just happened. When Roxy returned, seeing Fate's face drained of blood, Roxy held his hand, appearing extremely worried. At this moment, Fate was shocked because he could hear every secret thought in Roxy's head clearly. But when Roxy let go of his hand, it stopped. Roxy said she would report this incident to her superiors. Seeing this, Fate immediately asked Roxy to take credit for wiping out all the thieves herself, because if Ruffle found out Fate was involved, he would spread rumors and make life difficult for him. She made an offer, inviting Fate to come work for her household. Upon hearing this, Fate froze. On one side was a dark future exploited by the Berserks. On the other was a rosy future working beside the goddess Roxy. The next morning, Fate went to the market to buy himself a new sword. The shop owner thought Fate intended to buy high-end goods, but seeing he only had exactly 2 silver coins, he invited him to look at the clearance swords. Fate thought having something to use was better than going empty-handed, and Fate used his appraisal skill to check the stats of each sword. Since they were expired goods, their durability was almost zero. Amidst the pile, Fate noticed a black sword that was both old and covered in the dust of time. Holding the sword, Fate felt its aura was just as trashy as his own. Fate was shocked to his core when he realized this rusty sword could talk. It even invited Fate to buy it because they were both comrades in the same plight. Without thinking much, Fate bought the black sword named Greed. Meanwhile, the 3 holy knight siblings of the Berserk family learned that Fate had joined Roxy's household. The younger sister seemed bitter, but the eldest brother, Ruffle, didn't seem to care much. Ruffle was currently focusing his efforts on an immortality project, so he had to move to the military district. Fate and the sword Greed went outside the city to hunt monsters. After they got acquainted like good brothers, the sky suddenly turned dark. A goblin tried to eat Fate, but he sent it away with a single move. Not stopping there, a group of several dozen goblins surrounded them. Greed said that if one is killed, its whole family will come to visit. Holding his weapon firm, Fate rushed straight into the monster horde to confront them. Every time a target was destroyed, Fate's gluttony skill automatically activated, helping him take their stats. After a tense battle, Fate's stats increased, and simultaneously his hunger was soothed, so his stomach stopped protesting. Like before. At this point, Greed explained clearly about the mechanism of gluttony. Normally when hunting monsters, people receive experience to level up, but with Fate, gluttony directly steals the opponent's skills and stats. In exchange, Fate will remain permanently at level 1, never leveling up. Before returning, Fate had to collect 10 goblin ears to receive a bonus reward. Fate brought back 38 pairs of ears and received payment of 3 silver and 80 copper. Just planning to have a feast, Greed demanded Fate go take care of and refurbish its appearance first. While wandering around, Fate bumped into a guy who looked very hateful. Walking next to him was a petite little girl. As soon as the girl touched Fate, he heard an SOS signal ring out, like Big Brother, save me. Without hesitation, Fate hurriedly used appraisal to check the guy, but the result was blank as a sheet of paper. Greed immediately warned that this guy possessed a hidden skill and was not to be trifled with. However, ignoring the danger warnings, Fate couldn't bear to turn his back and decided to become Detective Conan and follow him. He squeezed into a small alley and accidentally overheard the entire dirty plan of that guy. He intended to trade the girl to perverted holy knights as a toy. Looking at that cunning face, Fate wanted to slap him a few times, but Greed reminded him this wasn't an easy fight. Think carefully. Don't be foolish or he'd become the next victim. Meanwhile, at a quiet and persistently poor orphanage, an elderly nun was passionately preaching to the children about the spirit of living with gratitude. According to her, before the guard disconnected without notice, they managed to gift humanity a skill package. Those with high luck became strong, those unlucky had to endure. She taught the kids to appreciate the gift, even if it was a skill for picking leaves or kicking cans. But among the children, a boy with a face like someone stole his food secretly thought the guards were biased. Knights get awesome skills, while all fun, kids get skills that are usable but useless. He only wished to go to a world without monsters, without skills, and especially without discrimination, so he wouldn't have to be jealous. Just then, another nun rushed in to announce that a missing child was nowhere to be found, causing the moral atmosphere to vanish instantly, leaving only the old woman sigh. Currently, Sahara was about to be taken to the Holy Knights to serve as their toy. While Sahara was panicking the most, Fate appeared to reassure her. As soon as Fate unlocked Sahara's chains, the kidnapper returned and called Fate a clown trying to show off. In this situation, Fate had to engage him to get the girl to safety. Greed immediately advised, this guy is underestimating you, so pretend to retreat. To make him complacent, then strike a critical blow. Fate lured him into the cargo area. As soon as he got close, Fate knocked over a pile of crates, although he dodged it. Right after, Fate rushed out with his sword for a surprise attack, leaving a slash wound on his face. Seeing Fate intended to fight to the end, he activated a special skill on his sword. Greed identified this skill as heavy, reminded Fate to finish it quickly. Immediately, Fate jumped up and slashed, breaking the opponent's sword and gifting him a tattoo wound on his body. Fate interrogated him about who the holy knight behind this was. After a harsh interrogation, he confessed it was the one who used to bully Fate. He took the girl back to the orphanage to hand her over. The two hugged in joy and didn't forget to thank Fate, making him a bit shy as this was the first time he received such sincere gratitude from others. After dispatching the kidnapper, Fate harvested the concealment skill from him. According to Greed, if he had let the guy use that move, Fate would have been sliced into pieces. He had to go refurbish his outfit because tomorrow was his first day working at Roxy's house. At the guild, people were sharing that Roxy's father had just been defeated by a heavenly dragon on the Gallia continent. So, she was about to shoulder the position of family head. What they worried about most was that, without Roxy's father, there would be no one to restrain the rampant evil holy knights. The next morning, as soon as Fate stepped foot into the Roxy family mansion, his jaw dropped at its grandeur. Roxy appeared in her usual style, making Fate freeze for 5 seconds. Roxy called out to Fate and praised him, making him flustered. Hearing this, Roxy also acted shy and led Fate inside. Before her father's shrine, Roxy introduced Fate as a new member of the family. Only now did Fate know Roxy's father had fallen in the monster continent. As an exemplary holy knight, her dad was always busy destroying monsters. But recently, a heavenly dragon suddenly woke up after a 1,000-year nap. The result was Roxy's father's team was wiped out due to the massive level difference. Even then, Roxy didn't forget to care about Fate, making him feel guilty. Fate promised himself that now that he was a servant, he would work at full capacity like a model employee. The pity was he couldn't shake Roxy's hand, naturally, because if he did, the mind reading skill would open, and hearing the girl's true thoughts would be awkward. Just then, Roxy introduced the head maid, named Haru. This big sister would handle training Fate properly, but as soon as he entered, Fate ate meat, like a zombie, causing Haru to sigh, not knowing how to train this brother. Fate had been working at Roxy's house for a week. Colleagues always told him to work leisurely and not exhaust himself. At first, they thought Fate had mental issues because he often talked to himself with the sword. Furthermore, he was always seen eating meat, as if he had a bottomless stomach. Of course, he couldn't reveal information about the gluttony skill, so Fate bluffed that he was at a growing age and needed lots of protein. At that moment, Haru came to call Fate too. Meet Roxy. In a space full of romantic vibes, Roxy had been waiting for him, but in Fate's head, he was only struggling, with his stomach rumbling non-stop. Seeing Fate so distracted, Roxy had to call him repeatedly to bring him back to reality. Coincidentally, the intimate way Roxy called Fate matched exactly how his father used to call him. Learning about Fate's father, Roxy showed great empathy. She affirmed that since they were now family, she called him affectionately like that. As soon as Roxy finished speaking, Fate suddenly shut down and fainted. When he woke up, Fate found himself somewhere in the mansion. On the table was a note from Roxy telling him to rest. At this point, Greed began checking his body condition. It said once gluttony is turned on, it cannot be turned off. Fate is forced to hunt to seek monster souls. If he stops, he will lose control and go on a rampage. Hearing this, Fate felt he was now no different from a monster. Even his eyes had turned red because he reached his endurance limit. With no other choice, Fate had to sneak out to relieve the hunger. He and Greed wiped out the monsters, not sparing a single one. Finding this group too weak, Fate sought the territory of giant goblins. Although he killed quite a few, his eyes remained red. He didn't know how many more he had to eat for gluttony to sleep. Luckily, after a bout of sword dancing, Fate's hunger cooled down somewhat. Just then, a goblin king entered his sights. He used upraisal and discovered it could self-regenerate wounds. Fate formed the intent to kill it to steal the skill. However, seeing it eating savagely, Fate was a bit hesitant. After being motivated by greed, Fate decided to find a way to defeat the goblin. Thanks to strategist Greed's guidance, Fate soon made the Goblin King vanish. Gluttony activated, helping Fate receive a super huge amount of stats. Along with the auto recovery skill, Greed suggested that with this amount of stats, it could evolve to version 1 by using Fate's stats. At that point, its form would change and its power would be upgraded, but the price was a bit steep, so Fate was hesitant. Greed frankly admitted it was just as greedy as him, so the decision belonged to Fate. Want to carry it alone or accompany this quality best friend? But those were just words to add drama. Greed was Fate's right hand. He didn't need to think much. Immediately, he used all the accumulated stats for Greed, like transferring all savings to his wife's card. The result was Greed transformed into an extremely cool magic bow. Seeing a goblin about to ambush, Greed said, "Try a shot." Fate didn't even bother aiming clumsily. The arrow fired and automatically sought the target like it had GPS. After defeating the monster, Fate collected goblin ears and sent them straight to the orphanage via delivery. He believed that with this pile of loot, the kids would have a lavish party for the next few days. Roxy had just dressed up in a new outfit too, prepared to go out. However, Fate confusedly asked who is that, making her pout. Initially, Roxy intended to go incognito but was exposed, so she shared the secret with Fate that she was going to inspect the town, warning him absolutely not to reveal it to anyone, especially the head maid. Suddenly, Roxy came up with a big idea and dragged Fate along. She assigned him a secret mission to escort her on the field trip. But looking at Roxy's expression, this mission looked more like a date. Greed reminded him that if Fate kept calling Roxy by her name, his identity would be exposed sooner or later. So Roxy also asked him to call her by a different name to avoid public scrutiny. Though he found it a bit troublesome, Fate accepted. Seeing the excited look like a child getting a gift on Roxy's face, Fate felt both amused and shy. Added to that, old man Greed kept teasing him, making him annoyed. Planning to teach the old guy a lesson, Roxy intervened. As a holy knight, she did not accept anyone mistreating weapons. Besides, this was the first time she saw Fate carrying a sword, so she wanted to evaluate it. This made Fate extremely worried, fearing the secret about the gluttony skill would be exposed if the sword fell into Roxy's hands. She picked it up to examine, making Fate fidgety. But in the end, Roxy only reminded him to take better care of the sword. Regarding Greed, it had to admit Roxy had a very captivating scent, making Fate furious. Afterwards, the two went to town together. This place sold all kinds of food and fruits from the Roxy family farm. Seeing a bunch of freshly picked grapes looking very delicious, Roxy asked the owner for two to enjoy with Fate. Tasting one, Fate praised it as top tier, making Roxy extremely proud of her hometown produce. However, Roxy's slip of the tongue almost exposed her. Luckily, Fate quickly caught on and covered for her so she wouldn't be suspected. Suddenly, a holy knight named Hardo within a leader's personality just like the Vlaric family appeared. As he walked past Fate, Fate's stomach suddenly rumbled extremely loudly, getting him caught. Fate thought to himself, I'm done for this time. When he approached, Fate immediately knelt down to apologize sincerely, not wanting to cause a scene in the market. This guy intended to kick Fate, but Roxy stopped him in time. Seeing Roxy, that guy frowned as if searching his memory for a famous person. People started whispering, looks like the idol Roxy. Seeing this, Roxy squeezed Fate's hand, telling him to pretend to be lovers too. Diffuse the situation immediately. While the young man was still shaking his head, Roxy had the same idea. Quick as lightning, she held Fate's hand tight and acted out a romantic scene cheesy enough for a romance movie. Although their acting skills were a bit fake, luckily the night was not even up. Not to realize anything, the crowd gradually dispersed, everyone going home, leaving the deeply acting couple to sigh in relief. However, Roxy kept holding Fate's hand without letting go, so he accidentally activated mind reading. Hearing the flustered thoughts of the girl, Roxy still wanted to continue the date. Arriving at the main street, Roxy froze in front of a jewelry store with bright eyes. Seeing some stones, the owner explained these were all stones. You have to break them to know if they are gems or not. It sounded like talking about finding a lover. Fate immediately used appraisal and realized they were all rocks with no value. Turning around, he saw Roxy looking more like a girly girl than a holy knight. Plus, the owner's shipping comments made Fate blush even more. Finally, both left the shop without buying anything. On the way, they heard people gossiping about goblins being wiped out in mass. Also about a pile of monster ears appearing at the orphanage, confusing the public. Since this was also a case Roxy was investigating, she had to stop by to ask. However, these people knew nothing. According to Roxy's assessment, she feared a wild monster had wandered into the capital and finished off the goblins. To explain more clearly, Fate led her to the guild. After seeing so many disappear, the guild master couldn't believe Fate was still alive. And well, Roxy played the role of a senior, accompanying him. However, the owner saw through everything, affirming she was definitely Fate's girlfriend. Hearing the word girlfriend, Roxy unintentionally crushed the water cup. But the owner didn't mind, assuming warriors sometimes lose emotional control. Afterward, they discussed the incident. Roxy worried that if that wild monster was still lurking, merchants would stop operating because they dared not cross the plains. Fate sweated upon hearing this because the monster being hunted was none other than himself. Just then, an old acquaintance of Fate, Mr. Aaron, arrived at the guild. He also heard news about the goblins and thought the culprit might be a monster called a lich. Due to the danger level, the Holy Knights would personally launch a suppression campaign. Greed reminded Fate that he wasn't skilled enough to face the Holy Knights yet. Moreover, Roxy was participating this time. Absolutely do not let her see him. At this moment, a group of nomadic warriors flooded the guild. One tried to hit on Roxy, but was lightly pushed by her against the wall. Seeing her superior strength, they immediately guessed this was a Holy Knight. Roxy also officially revealed her true identity. Realizing she was the young lady of a great family, they were scared enough to kneel and beg for mercy. But Roxy didn't inspect or punish them. She told herself she had a responsibility to protect every citizen of the kingdom. Her dream and her late father's was to build a happy world where everyone could smile. Hearing this, Fate felt very moved. He decided to support Roxy until she fulfilled her wish. Leaving the guild, the two went to the blacksmith to upgrade the sword. After cleaning, Greed leveled up and looked cooler. On the way back, Roxy realized the Vlaric trio had hidden information about the monster suppression from her. Walking a distance, they encountered them bullying a child. On Roxy's order, Fate rushed to rescue the boy from the thugs. Now protected by Roxy, Fate was much more confident and didn't fear them anymore. Roxy questioned Ruffle why he hid important information from her. This guy justified it absurdly, saying maybe because she was busy grieving family matters, he hadn't reported it yet. When they left, the boy exclaimed that holy knights were all hateful people. Roxy felt very guilty and apologized to the boy on their behalf. Seeing the kid was lost from his mother, decided to take him to play. Going to the market, Fate immediately bought 3 meat skewers for the three to enjoy. Seeing this scene, Fate suddenly remembered memories of years ago when a female holy knight also treated him very kindly. He wondered where she was now. Eventually, the two managed to return the kid to his family. Witnessing Roxy's happy smile, a thought occurred to Fate. Could Roxy be that goddess from 5 years ago? That question remained open like a movie without an ending, but now wasn't the time to investigate because they had to return urgently, or the head maid would give them a long lecture series. Roxy didn't forget to tell Fate that if they got scolded, remember to stand next to her to share it. Hearing this was so sentimental it hurt, so the two dragged each other back, heads, bowed, got caught climbing the fence, together, and apologized in unison to Horu, whose face was cold as cash. That night, Fate wanted to hunt monsters with Roxy without being recognized, so Gree suggested a hide item, a perception blocking mask. Wearing it would make others freeze and not know who he was. Conveniently, Fate bought an ore stone to gift Roxy as a thank you for supporting him enthusiastically. Of course, Fate checked carefully before buying, so when Roxy broke it and saw a gem, she was as happy as if she won the lottery. She promised to keep this gift forever. Meanwhile, the Holy Knights held a secret meeting without inviting Roxy to discuss the great matter, the expedition to the Gallia Continent. That night, adventurers were once again thrown into turmoil upon discovering the goblins had been wiped out again. Naturally, they didn't suspect Fate, but gave the reputation to the monster Lich. Seeing Fate's silhouette from afar, the whole guild ran for their lives. But in reality, Fate was just wearing the mask so people would mistake him for the final boss. The next morning, Fate played the role of a gentle servant again. The young mistress invited him on a top-secret mission, inspecting the farming areas. Initially, Fate thought it was just sightseeing and eating grapes for fun. Unexpectedly, after the work, Roxy took him to meet her parent, Mrs. Orisha. Seeing Roxy's mother trying to receive guests despite being sick, Roxy was restless. Before her mother, Roxy introduced Fate as the family's new recruit. Meeting Orisha, Fate and Greed both agreed this was an extremely warm woman. Orisha immediately called Fate over to confide. She asked directly if Fate had a crush on Roxy. This question made both of them freeze stiff, but it turned out she only wanted to ask Fate's impression of her daughter. Fate affirmed he admired. This answer was no different from a direct marriage proposal in front of the mother-in-law, making Roxy so embarrassed she fled straight upstairs. According to Oisha, Roxy was no different from when she was little. Whenever she faced difficulty, she would cry or run away. She worried her daughter would face great pressure, suddenly losing her support and having to shoulder the whole family. Fate comforted her, saying Roxy was a wonderful knight trusted absolutely by everyone, so she would surely become an extremely prestigious leader. Meanwhile, Roxy went upstairs and looked at her father's keepsakes. Roxy's father taught her a lot about swordsmanship to help her be strong, and she once promised him that she would become a true holy knight who always brought smiles to the people. It's just that currently, Roxy still felt self-reproach because she hadn't fully fulfilled that sacred promise to her father. Fate went to the vineyard to help with the harvest. When resting, he was offered a cup of grape juice by an uncle to recover. He also told Fate that many generations of this family had spent a lot of effort improving the land, including Roxy's father, who recently passed away. Initially, he thought Roxy would be very sad about her father's death. Unexpectedly, she still came back this year to help everyone harvest. Every time she returned, she helped them clear monsters from this land, including the kobolds from the mountains. Hearing kobold, Fate's stomach immediately felt hungry, proving the gluttony skill was sick of goblins already. That afternoon, Roxy told Fate to go back. First, no need to wait for her. On the way back, Fate encountered a strange-looking girl carrying a giant axe. Deciding to ignore her and walk on, she called him back. Looking at those red eyes, Fate feared she also had the gluttony skill like him, but when using upraisal, he couldn't see anything. The girl mind said that just for today, she would yield the kobold hunting to him. When she left, Fate asked Reed who that was, but it turned out he didn't know the identity of that girl, so he had been silent all this time. When meeting Roxy, she also didn't know the identity of the stranger, but according to her assessment, she was a person from the Gallia Continent. In the past, the mighty Gallia kingdom was wiped out by monsters. The people of the kingdom were also wiped out. No survivors. Impossible to believe the girl just now resembled a pure-blood Gallian so much. On the way back, Fate worried whether Roxy suppressing monsters alone would be okay, so he immediately returned to her, acting like he alone could handle it. However, Roxy didn't notice and dropped a basket of grapes, so both had to hurriedly pick them up. The next morning, when everyone woke up, they saw the vineyard destroyed. Looking at the tracks on the ground, they assumed the wolves' kobolds had surely passed through here. Immediately after, Roxy's group went to their base to track them, and they were surprised that the alpha leader was excessively large compared to the rest. As for Fate, he felt so craving that one of his eyes turned red. Using upraisal ... Fate saw the wolf was level 50 with massive stats, so dealing with it would definitely be difficult. Not easy at all. Back at the territory, Roxy reassured the people that she would personally go destroy it to protect everyone. However, Greed said she alone would have difficulty handling such a huge responsibility, so he asked what Fate planned to do. Of course, he couldn't ignore Roxy's territory or watch her face danger. So that night, Fate and Greed returned to the wolf's base. When seeing the alpha appear, he transformed Greed into the bow to attack from range. The ones in the pack were taken down consecutively after just a few shots. With each one destroyed, Gluttony absorbed all their stats. The alpha used a smaller one to block Fate's shot, while Fate kept moving forward using the sword to slash each one down. But Fate felt only the alpha leader would satisfy his hunger tonight. However, it blocked his shot easily. Greed saw this and reminded Fate to switch to the sword for close combat. But just as he rushed in, the alpha prepared to throw a punch. Luckily, Fate dodged in time, otherwise, all his internal organs would have been shattered by that blow. Fate was thrown back and lay still in the stream, but he only feigned fainting to launch a surprise attack, taking the arm of a wolf. Besides the alpha, there was still another one causing him difficulty, so he rushed in and stabbed it in the mouth. Gluttony activated, giving Fate a lot more stats. Greed saw this and reminded him to sacrifice 10% of stats so both could execute a special move to finish the alpha. Fate's bow immediately transformed into a new shape, and his shot blew away everything in front, simultaneously making the alpha wolf vanish. Looking back, the entire mountain was also blown away. Gluttony absorbed a strong monster, making him excited, so Greed had to remind him to try to restrain himself and not lose control of the power. The next morning, when Roxy's team arrived, they found wolves lying dead on the ground, and the mountain blown away, making everyone unable to imagine who did this. Fate also silently apologized for destroying the landscape of her family territory. Roxy's mother realized her daughter always smiled when next to Fate, so she met him privately to ask him to always stay by and support her daughter. Currently, her health was weakening significantly. Facing that request, Fate couldn't refuse. He promised to help her fulfill a mother's wish. Sometimes Fate wavered, wondering if he could stay by Roxy anymore, because he was deceiving the whole world about his power. Recently, goblins couldn't satisfy Fate anymore, so Greed reminded him to think about the future. The gluttony skill had grown stronger, forcing him to cover one eye. At the guild, he heard information that young Master Hardo of the Blerick family would go to suppress monsters. This was the name Fate used to hide his identity. Corpse mass. People said initially he had the mission to suppress the monster Contanut Gallia, but because he was busy suppressing the Lich, he pushed this task to someone else. That was Roxy, the person the evil holy knights hated the most. That afternoon, Roxy reported she would go to Gallia. Fate tried to stop her because that Contanut was too dangerous. However, this was Roxy's decision, so she wouldn't change it, making him very worried because she was falling into the Blerick's trap. Tonight, Hado's group would be responsible for suppressing the Lich and were waiting on the plains to teach it a lesson. With cruel people doing evil deeds like him, Fate swore not to forgive. Hardo used the usual trick of sending 3 rookie minions up first to test the power of the Lich, but he knew their stats were as low as a dying phone battery and their movements slow, so after a few moves, all 3 were sent face down to the ground instantly. When Fate accidentally revealed his gluttony, these guys were scared enough to run home, leaving Hardo standing there boasting alone. He confidently took off his hood and mask, like in an action movie, so Hardo could clearly see his true identity. Hardo was shocked, freezing for 5 seconds, not expecting the kid he used to beat like a drum had now turned into a final boss. Though a prestigious holy knight, he still shook like a leaf, holding his sword with trembling hands. Fate smiled lightly. Show me some holy knight power. Using upraisal to peek, he saw Hardo possess the holy sword mastery skill, a premium skill only holy knights have. Yet a scumbag like him was favored by the guards. Luckily, Greed encouraged him, just be confident. I broke a holy sword before. Hardo launched a light slash towards Fate, but he dodged very quickly. Then he approached from behind and said Hado's movements were too slow. With just one slash, Fate destroyed the holy sword in his hand. A precious weapon he was always proud of was now gone. Fate threw the broken blade out and told him to pick it up to continue fighting, but his pathetic appearance showed no way to fight back. At this moment, he repeated the sentence Hardo once said to him, dogs that like to rebel need to be punished severely. He grabbed his head and returned everything he had to endure before. Unable to bear it, he had to beg for mercy. But Fate couldn't forgive a guy who trampled on human lives like him. Even Roxy's father lost his life because of scum like this. All his pleas were now meaningless. Fate kicked him into the air and transformed his weapon into a bow. He continued to sacrifice 10% stats to Greed, as before, then fired blood arrows continuously towards him. But actually, he missed on purpose, only taking his limbs, because he wanted to ask him what they did to Roxy. Turns out these guys exploited her love for the people to push her to the monster Contanut. He didn't dare lie out of fear. However, Fate finished him off immediately, because he was his enemy. Gluttony activated again, helping him seize all of Hado's stats. His skills were also taken, so now Fate looked no different from a holy knight. Greed reminded him to sacrifice stats to unlock new power. He agreed immediately because he didn't want Hado's dirty stats flowing in him. Immediately after, Greed evolved into the next form, a cursed side that can cut through anything. The next morning, Roxy packed up to leave for Gallia, since she was going alone this time. Everyone seemed very emotional. Fate really wanted to accompany her, but he was prone to revealing his identity, so he could only wish her safety on her mission. After Roxy left, he received a letter of introduction to work at another noble house. He was very moved, not expecting that in the final moment she still thought of him. So he decided if he couldn't accompany Roxy directly, he would secretly support her. The next day, the maid Haru sent his salary and severance pay. Afterwards, he also said goodbye to the guild master to leave for Gallia with a determination to protect Roxy with all his power. Roxy assembled the army at the capital. The purpose of the war was to destroy the heavenly dragon approaching the national border. To protect the capital and the people, she needed everyone's strength. Among the warriors volunteering for Gallia this time was a girl named Miria, likely referring to the researcher girl or a soldier, but narrative suggests Mugen's daughter later. Because she idolized Roxy, she wanted to follow her to the end. Besides, there was an enthusiastic old man named Mugen. Due to incompatible personalities, Mugen was always teased by this little girl. Mugen said he used to march with Roxy's father, so this time he came also for his vengeance. Simultaneously, he wanted to bring Gallian artifacts back as gifts for his daughter. Roxy was very happy seeing this, believing these two would be capable assistants. Mugen's daughter named Iris, set note. Likely incorrect name in transcript, context. Implies researcher was working at the research lab, and the bodies of goblins Fate destroyed were brought here by her. Based on the wounds on their bodies, she discovered the culprit's weapon was a magic bow. This is a variant of the Black Sword, and the Black Sword is a mortal sin weapon that can control a large amount of magic, so she really wanted to see that weapon once. At the same time, Fate was on his way down to the southern town of the kingdom, known as the capital of merchants and also a major logistics hub. He passed through here 5 years ago, so as soon as he stepped foot, nostalgic vibes here. Immediately afterward, he intended to catch a carriage to continue to the monster continent Gallia, but today no one dared to run that route, probably due to danger, so he had to stay temporarily in this town, with his stomach rumbling like a festival drum. Carrying a pile of salary money, he decided to eat a full meal without thinking. Just stepping into the restaurant, he encountered a pitiful young man earnestly begging adventurers to save his hometown, but the guys criticized the low pay and stepped on his head. Fate had to personally intervene, reminding them a few words before the thugs left. Handling it done, he turned to look closely at the young man and surprisingly called his name. Turns out this was the kid said who used to bully him when he lived in the village because he had no friends to play with. Fate always followed his father to watch him hunt monsters, but after a while, his father passed away, leaving him alone and helpless. Previously, the village chief took in Fate's father only because he had spear skills, but when he died, they considered Fate a freeloader and kicked him out of the village. Now the son of that village chief, Set, was kneeling before him begging him to have mercy and save his village. Greed immediately reminded him, just go, destroy a few, it doesn't matter, since you have to satisfy the gluttony skill anyway. So he agreed, although inside he still held much resentment towards the village. Upon arrival, the village chief recognized Fate as the piece of trash he threw away years ago. No matter how his son persuaded, he still considered Fate a weakling and decided to hire someone else. Even knowing monsters were coming very close to the village, he intended to throw Fate to the monsters to buy time. Hearing this, Fate was furious, but Set begged him to calm down. Luckily, he was used to being trampled on, so he didn't want to lay hands on him. Through the conversation, he learned Set's wife was killed by monsters. Before, Set thought his father, the chief, was always right, but since having a daughter, his thinking had matured a lot. Seeing father and child together, Fate suddenly remembered his own father, so he asked Set for information about this monster. According to the story, they appeared about a month ago, traveling in packs and can fly, so they are somewhat difficult. Just then, Fate's stomach growled, so Set went to make him something. Greed guessed they were gargoyles. Context implies flying monsters are very intelligent monster species. They always scout first and then attack in a swarm. Just then, Set's daughter appeared, giving him a piece of candy and sweetly inviting him to eat. Then she invited him to arm wrestle enthusiastically, which he happily obliged. Set at this moment also brought out dinner to invite him, but before he could eat, Fate suddenly felt dizzy and collapsed on the table. Turns out the chief secretly gave a candy laced with sleeping drugs to Set's daughter and told her to give it to Fate. Hearing the story, Set was completely shocked. Turns out his father intended to sacrifice Fate to the monsters. He tried to wake Fate, but it was too late. Outside, monsters were swarming to surround the house in the night. The monsters started spewing fire relentlessly on the village. The whole village quickly sank into a sea of fire. Villagers screamed miserably. Many who didn't run in time were eaten. Meanwhile, Fate was still fast asleep, and Set was frantically mixing an antidote. The village chief didn't escape being disposed of by monsters according to karma. Luckily, Set managed to give Fate the antidote in time. After waking up, he grabbed his sword and rushed out. Hitting his eyes was a scene of devastation. A monster in the cloud immediately spewed fire at Fate, but he dodged aside fast as a cat. Activating Upraisal, he discovered this swarm possessed the fireball skill, allowing long-range fire attacks. Greed immediately reminded, if you want to treat this guy group, switch to scythe form. So he transformed the sword into a scythe, ready to welcome them. With just one slash, he cut the monster's fireball in two. Sensing his danger, they immediately accumulated a massive fireball to attack. Fate threw his scythe straight through the fire, slicing the flying monsters first. When the scythe returned, Gluttony activated, helping him get the fireball skill. Since the small ones were all wiped out, now, before him remained only one alpha leader. Greed reminded him to prepare because this monster would close in 2 use fireball. When the monster flew close, he held the scythe, rushed up aiming straight for the monster's head, and cut it in two. Gluttony activated again, helping him gain fire resist skill. The battle ended, but the village was completely destroyed. He advised Set to go live somewhere else. Afterward, he stopped by the old house to visit his father's grave. He believed memories with his dad would never disappear. Meanwhile, Roxy's team was very close to the Manchester territory or similar name and would pass through to restock supplies. A merchant paid Fate 3 gold coins to protect him, and on the way, they bumped into a group of bandits blocking the road to Rog. He was too scared, hugging Fate hoping for his life saved. But this guy hugged too tight, making Fate unable to draw his sword. Just then, an axe suddenly fell from somewhere, terrifying the bandits. And the person appearing was none other than Mine, the girl he met last time. Mine said she came here to collect the debt. Regarding the kobold, the merchant told him the carriage had arrived at Manchester City. Just entering, they saw a girl being chased by ghosts. Then a young knight appeared and destroyed the ghost to win the girl's favor. According to the merchant, his name is Rudolph, the Lord of Manchester, and he was preparing to go out to welcome Roxy's expeditionary army. Hearing this, Fate realized he arrived even before her. At this point, Mine was tired, so he had to carry her on his back to find an inn. On the way, he saw the residents here seem to respect holy knights very much, and on their necks was a strange painted symbol. Greed guessed this might be a sign of class division in this city. However, Fate felt something was wrong. Turns out Rudolph's nature was extremely cruel, straight up killing 2 warriors just for failing to spread his greatness, causing him to lose face before Roxy's family. After checking in, Greed told him why he knew Mine. Turns out he was acquainted with the axe, Sloth, her weapon, and this axe is also a weapon of one of the 7 mortal sins. The 7 mortal sins include gluttony, wrath, greed, sloth, lust, envy, and pride. Among them, gluttony is the heaviest sin, because it can break the morality created by the gods. Fate wondered if the hunger symptom was his punishment. Greed said anyone with great power has to pay a price. Even Mine. He still felt uneasy because carrying gluttony meant he only knew killing to satisfy hunger. Greed advised him to stay calm and find a way to resist it himself. That night he went with Greed to the desert to hunt monsters. He told him to slowly satisfy the hunger bit by bit. Now he could combine fireball with the magic, bow to create an arrow with new power. With just one shot, he incinerated and successfully finished off the sand monster. Although there were many monsters around, he constantly had to restrain himself. Meanwhile, Mine woke up at the inn and went out to find food. She read a flyer stating rewards for those who destroy the monster, and this was a monster Rudolph dared not face. But for Fate, he easily destroyed them with just one arrow. His main course today was a giant sand golem. Right nearby, while adventurers were helpless, Fate appeared as a savior. He said he only wanted to fill his stomach. The golem turned to attack, but he used the batter counter, then drew his sword to close. In for melee, this monster possessed the sand dust skill. If sucked into its stomach, Fate would definitely be crushed. So he switched to the scythe and launched a slash, destroying its move. When he intended to rush in to finish it, the monster's call was too scared and burrowed into the sand to run away. Seeing this, Fate switched to the bow and sacrificed 20% stats to Greed. He combined fireball with the magic bow to fire a supergiant fire arrow. This shot finished off the monster's core and caused a massive explosion. The monster's skill was immediately absorbed by Gluttony. Just arriving back at the room, he walked in on Mine having just finished bathing. Though she was nonchalant, he turned beat, red-hairedly begging her to put clothes on. Mine announced she was preparing to go out to hunt the golem. Hearing this, he sweated bullets because he just handled that one. Knowing her target was stolen, she flew into a rage, forcing him to promise to split half the reward to keep his life. Both just collected the money when Rudolph walked in. Seeing Fate was the one who defeated the golem, he immediately changed his tone, wanting to pull him in as a subordinate, but Mine didn't let it slide. She swung her axe straight into his face, sending him flying into the sky. Knowing she caused big trouble, he immediately dragged her to flee the city. Fate generously bought Mine a pile of dry meat, but she kept eating and her stomach kept growling. Just hearing him slip up saying you eat forever but don't develop at all, she got angry, activated her weapon, and made the carriage smoke right on the spot. The consequence was he had to open his wallet to pay for carriage repairs. Seeing Mine trudging into a nearby village, he reluctantly followed. Behind the village was a castle as big as a dream. He was planning to sneak in for a tour when he unexpectedly clashed with an elderly holy knight. He realized that Fate possessed the appraisal skill along with a massive amount of stats. It turned out the old man had the exact same skill, and when he asked if Fate would agree to a duel, Fate drew his sword. The two immediately rushed in, exchanging moves extremely intensely. Initially, it seemed evenly matched, but later Fate dropped his sword and lost the bout. Fate thought he would be kicked out of the village, but the old man said he would let him stay on the condition that he would personally train Fate in skills. The old man believed Fate still didn't know how to thoroughly utilize his power and skills, and he considered training him a fun hobby for his old age. Hearing this, both Fate and Greed felt a bit suspicious. But afterwards, Fate decided to stay because not everyone gets the chance to be trained by a holy knight. At this point, the old man introduced himself as Aaron, and he also seemed very impressed with Mine upon seeing her. While Mine was sleeping soundly, Fate and Aaron began training. Aaron decided to train Fate in martial arts to control his stats. Also, Aaron knew Fate knew nothing about martial arts, so he had to step close to adjust his posture correctly. Then he adjusted Fate's punching and kicking force so he could attack faster, because if Fate used too much excess strength, his body movements would slow down. At this time, Mine sat nearby watching grandfather and grandson train while her stomach was starving, but ignoring Mine's complaints of hunger. The two continued to fight enthusiastically. During training, Fate's semi-gluttony state appeared. Although Fate was a bit uncomfortable, he utilized this state to gain faster speed. When fighting Aaron, by the afternoon, Aaron paused the session, saying Mine would teach Fate practical combat skills. Suddenly, Fate smelled the scent of a monster in the castle in front of him, but before he could ask Aaron, the two discovered Mine had gone into the house, stole food, and fell asleep. Aaron said he would ask the villagers to share food with him and Mine. Fate, seeing Mine fast asleep, immediately drew lines on her face for the crime of eating alone. On the way to get food, Aaron looked toward the castle with a thoughtful expression. Meanwhile, Fate saw a family photo of Aaron hanging in his house and remarked that the boy in the photo looked very similar to someone. Mine woke up and appeared very sulky that Fate drew on her face. Fate went outside to practice practical skills with Aaron. This time, Aaron only allowed Fate to hold a tree branch while he held a sword. When Aaron's blade came close to Fate used light force to skillfully push the sword away. Through this exercise, Aaron assessed that Fate controlled his stats better. Just then, Mine arrived saying she also wanted to reward Fate with some circles on his face. That night, Fate thanked Aaron to prepare to leave the next morning. He also turned to remind Mine, but she was only busy eating and paid no attention. Mine admitted she tasted everything the same because she had no sense of taste, and Greed said that was the price of the sin of wrath. At this moment, Aaron looked at the castle and told Fate a story from the past. That castle used to belong to Aaron, but 15 years ago, during a time he went out on a mission, a monster appeared and murdered everyone there, including his son. According to Aaron, that monster was named Lich, formed from hatred. Since then, it has ruled the castle and imprisoned his family inside. Hearing this, Fate pretended to go out to sneak into the castle, but Aaron knew Fate's intention and unexpectedly followed him. As for Mine, she took responsibility for watching the house while the two were away. When the two approached the castle, lights shone brightly inside. Fate used his bow to shoot down a skeleton guard. When Aaron was startled, Fate explained the arrow was imbued with sand dust magic to petrify the target, so Aaron commented that Fate's power was truly not ordinary at all. Then the two together wiped out the skeleton guards and proceeded straight inside the castle. Here, Aaron froze for 5 seconds seeing his whole family still alive. From his wife to his son, everyone welcomed him back with tears in their eyes. But Greed was sharp as a tack, warning immediately, don't celebrate too soon. This is illusion magic. They died ages ago. While Aaron was confused, not knowing whether to be moved or bewildered, suddenly, his son swung a sword to attack him for real. Luckily, Aaron parried in time because he knew clearly they were truly no longer alive. The son's soul kept blaming him for only burying his face in work and forgetting his home and children. Meanwhile, Fate stood by impatiently, planning to jump in and finish off the illusions, but Greed held him back because if he used gluttony, he would swallow their souls and, if swallowed, they are destined to live forever in a painful hell with no return. ticket. Hearing this, Fate had to grit his teeth and hold back, temporarily letting Aaron solve the tearful and bloody family drama himself. While he went upstairs to find the monster, named Lich, he fired an arrow to lure it out. Using Upraisal, Fate saw it was level 100 with sky-high stats. Its weapon was a scythe. It used a corpse control skill to summon the souls of the people in the castle, so, currently, Fate could not attack them. Luckily, Aaron arrived to help him handle a few walking corpses. But now, right in front of him was the soul of his wife from years ago. Aaron blamed himself that back then he returned late, causing the whole family to die, so now he had the responsibility to liberate everyone. Immediately after, Aaron used his holy sword to emit a beam of light intended to wipe them out in one strike. However, Aaron saw his current power was insufficient. Seeing this, Fate put his sword aside and picked up Aaron's son's sword. Both combined their swords to execute the move together, and the light from the two swords caused the Lich's body to turn into dust. Aaron brought the bodies of his wife and son close together. Then he apologized to them for coming home too late. The souls of the two appeared and encouraged him, saying he had no fault because, in the end, he had liberated them. Before parting, Aaron gifted his son the present he promised to buy him. Then he embraced both of them after many years of family separation. The Lich was still alive and intended to attack Aaron, but Fate took it down with a petrification shot. The gluttony skill activated, helping him seize the stats along with the monster's skill. At this moment, the souls of Aaron's wife and son left his arms to ascend to heaven, leaving him and Fate in the desolate, cold castle. After combining with Fate, Aaron broke through his level limit, and now the two would clean up all the skeletons in front to return home. Just arriving back, they saw Mine waiting. With her axe, Aaron immediately gave her reward money for her effort in the house from yesterday until now. However, Mine returned it to Aaron because she knew he needed money to rebuild the village. At this moment, Aaron remembered Mine was a person who killed monsters here 5 years ago. Now this warrior girl appeared with the exact same appearance. When the two wondered, Mine replied that she was simply a ghost who couldn't die. While at it, Fate also took the opportunity to confess a small secret. If he didn't destroy monsters regularly, his eyes would turn red like he just finished crying over a movie. Aaron just gently told him, whenever you are done with your business, come back here. I have something important to discuss. Meanwhile, at a faraway place, Raphael was rejoicing like he won the lottery because he just found the Philosopher's Stone, a legendary treasure that can cure all diseases, even laziness. But before the joy cooled down, the butler ran in to announce hot news that his brother, Hardo, had been wiped out by a monster named Lich Lord. Hearing this, Raphael was startled as if choking on water. Before he could regain his composure, the subordinate added another blow. That monster was actually a human. Raphael's face twisted with bitterness, not knowing the true name of that person, only knowing he just lost a brother and was played for a fool in the literal sense. Fate and Mine continued their journey. Before leaving, Aaron set Mine a lot of food. Yet she devoured it all without leaving a single piece. Seeing Fate looking a bit annoyed, Mine fed him a piece of dried meat, hoping he would be less angry, and even patted his head as if a mother comforting a child, then borrowed his lap as a pillow to sleep. At this moment, Fate saw Mine sleeping, obediently, looking no different from a child, but remembering Mine had lived for many years, he tried asking Greed if he knew anything more about her, but he only told Fate to just go with Mine, and he would understand her story. While the carriage was rolling, right nearby, Roxy and her team were also on their way to Aaron's village and his castle, because they heard the castle was occupied by a Lich. Approaching, the group saw the castle was no different from a typical abandoned house. The castle owner, Aaron, also appeared to welcome them. Seeing Roxy, he acknowledged she had grown up very fast. When she wondered, Aaron explained he was an old acquaintance of her parents and even helped them name her. Aaron said the monster had been destroyed, but he alone didn't have enough strength. Another person helped, but regrettably, he had just left this morning. When Roxy asked for this person's identity, Aaron couldn't reveal it because before leaving, Fate had told him if anyone asked, don't mention anything about him. Aaron also knew about Roxy's team heading to the monster Continent Gallia, and he guessed the Vlerics likely pulled strings to send a young knight like her to this place because Aaron's and Roxy's families were both thorns in their eyes. Roxy was naturally kind, so she said. Regardless of the reason, she decided to proceed there. At this moment, she also mentioned her father died in Gallia. Hearing this, Aaron suggested she stay for further training, so Miria and Mugen reluctantly became castle cleaners. Meanwhile, Roxy and Aaron practiced swordsmanship together from that day on. While Fate and Mine arrived at a ruined city, Mine said this was where she was born, and as soon as she was born, she was taken to Gallia. This startled Fate because Gallia was destroyed 1,000 years ago. Going inside, they encountered a giant cocoon. According to Mine, this was a chimera cocoon, a type of ancient biological weapon of Gallia. When he activated Upraisal, he saw massive stats like a straight 10 report card. But, strangely no skills were displayed. Mine immediately guessed this was the golden time to dispose of the chimera because it was still in the embryonic stage. With his gluttony skill, he would be a capable assistant helping her clean up quickly. Saying that, Mine flew into the air swinging, her axe like chopping wood, shattering the cocoon containing the monster. But inside wasn't a terrifying monster, but a girl with red eyes identical to hers. Looking at her, one could immediately see a twin sister before he could question. The real chimera emerged from the cocoon, and ironically, right in the middle of its chest, was the girl from before lying snugly inside. Immediately, she pointed out that she was the monster's core. His mission was to finish off that core, but fate froze, unable to bring himself to do it because if swallowed by gluttony, her soul would be banished to eternal hell with no return. Mine had to sternly remind him again not to let that deceptive appearance fool him. It's just a monster disguised as a beauty. As soon as she finished speaking, the monster launched a wide area attack, spewing lava like a mixed heart part spilling over, forcing both to hold hands and run from the smoke, dodging while wondering if this was a sub-boss or a buffet. But immediately after, Mine turned back and used her axe to slash the lava flow in two. Before Fate could marvel, she closed in on the monster and launched a slash destroying its arm. Below, he used the magic bow to pin its legs, but it had regeneration capabilities, so limbs grew back in just a few seconds. Not stopping there, Mine continued to approach and attack with her powerful axe, causing the monster to scream loudly. Afterwards, it evolved into an adult form and sprouted for wings on its back. Sensing the dangerous situation, Mine reminded him to stay behind her. This made Fate very ashamed because now he was the one being protected by others, so he decided to release the semi-gluttony state of his body. Although there was a risk of being swallowed by gluttony, he was determined to suppress the pain to release power. The monster fired feathers, but they were blocked by Mine. He switched to the semi-gluttony state to start countering. Immediately after, both jumped into the air. Fate sacrificed 10% of his stats to fire a sand dust magic arrow, causing the monster to be petrified. Mine unleashed all the power of her axe and launched a slash cutting off its leg. Unable to stand anymore, it cast a barrier to heal itself. So he switched to the scythe and launched a slash straight at the barrier's weak point. The core cried out again and fired feathers continuously at him. Then the monster flew up high so he couldn't keep up. Suddenly his gluttony eye bled. Knowing he was reaching his limit, Mine said she would use the axe to support him getting close to the monster, and when he stood on the axe, she swung it to throw him upward. With 20% stats sacrificed, he enhanced his side to deliver a decisive blow. His goal was to find the monster's magic center, but upon getting close, it pulled him into the barrier with the aim of burning him. Inside, this barrier was very hot, so he had to find a way to destroy it before being burned to ash. Immediately after, Fate used the scythe to stab straight into the monster's core, and when both made contact, the mind-reading skill helped him see this girl's past. They used children to research weapons. Surprisingly, Mine and that girl were victims of this organization. Usually when destroying a target he felt excited, but this time he only felt his heart tightening as the monster and the girl turned into a pile of rubble. Mine later set up a tombstone for her old friend. She said once one becomes a biological monster, if not destroyed, they become a great threat to the world. Hearing this, Fate feared that one day he would also lose control, so he asked Mine that if one day he lost his reason, please finish him off because only she could destroy him. Mine walked over, hugged him, and said when that time comes, she promised to take his life. Their journey ended here because Mine had to go rebuild a village, so she decided to part ways. Afterward, he upgraded the weapon to the third form, which is a shield, truly a comprehensive offense and defense style. Although he earnestly begged Mine to let him accompany and support her, she only shook her head refusing, leaving a tearless goodbye sentence. Saying goodbye to Mine, he packed up and headed to the defense city Babylon, surrounded by a giant metal wall standing firm for 1,000 years like the grandfather defense systems. He aimed for the north gate to enter the city, but upon arrival, he nearly fell off. His chair seeing meat skewers here were 5 times more expensive than in the capital. He suddenly saw the royal flag fluttering in the wind, and immediately reflexively covered his face fast like a ninja to avoid exposure. And not making him wait long, Roxy appeared, amidst cheers like an idol just debuting, making the whole street explode. But amidst that heated crowd, a suspicious character peeked out. She calmly declared, like a curse, that Roxy would have to die in this city. The city of Babylon was indeed a cradle, gathering all kinds of warriors, from righteous heroes to sworn enemies of holy knights. He felt this place was designed for him, because everyone here shared a common hobby of destroying monsters with all their might, utilizing every resource possible, even guys fighting while selling meat skewers. Roxy would soon regroup with a young man named Northern, who once fought shoulder to shoulder with her father in moments of life and death. Although the pity was at that time he couldn't help anything other than standing and watching tensely, she didn't blame him at all, but wanted to cooperate with Northern to crush the monsters together. The problem was Miria, a member of the band. Everyone knew Roxy Club, saw Northern, appearing to want to flirt, so she flew in too. A rage, eyes looking like they wanted to burn the atmosphere. While everyone was debating if Northern was serious, she gently reminded everyone, calm down, now I have to go inspect the town. As for Fate, even though his wallet was as flat as soaked rice paper, he was pressured to buy a new scabbard with the simple reason that using old gear didn't look like a main character. The shop owner was also very enthusiastic and reliable, so Fate asked him to make a custom scabbard. But looking at his cool sword, the guy asked for 50 gold coins, so Fate was too shocked to buy it and went outside the city to kill monsters. Where he stood was the border of Babylon and Gallia. This place had a lot of poisonous moss flying in the air, so Greed advised him to limit inhaling it. Entering monster territory, he saw a herd of orcs numbering about 50. They coordinated quite intelligently, so Greed reminded him to be careful. He thought this time he would demonstrate Aaron's swordsmanship to destroy them, but a group of adventurers rushed in first to snatch the monster herd from him because he didn't want to compete with weaklings. He yielded this mob to them, but just then, another group of monsters jumped into the battle, so he used his speed to rush forward to destroy them. When they shot arrows at him, he switched his sword to the defensive shield form. According to Greed, this was a shield that could block both physical and magical attacks. Besides the large size for blocking, this shield could also be used to attack, and every time he stabbed a monster with the shield, it was sliced into pieces. Greed said the herd now looked like mince meat. As for Fate, although he gained a lot of stats, Gluttony's reaction seemed a bit weak. Perhaps after destroying the giant monster last time, this bunch wasn't enough to satisfy it. He brought 2 bags of orc ears to the guild. Amidst the amazement of the adventurers, the receptionist also widened her eyes, never seeing anyone bring back such a large quantity of ears. Suddenly, the rat-faced guy from earlier claimed Fate stole his prey, so he wanted to claim it back. So Fate gave this guy a handbraking snap, making his teammates very angry. They called everyone to rush in to gang up on him and steal his pile of ears, but he handled them in a single note. One guy got kicked straight in the nightingale groin, making him hurt too much to speak. While he was receiving the reward from the receptionist, Roxy unexpectedly appeared at the guild. Of course, he was wearing a mask so she couldn't recognize his identity, and when understanding the situation, clearly, she knew he was the one attacked. First, she commented on his dressing style, saying the clothes on his body torn to shreds. Fate felt pathetic and ran out of the guild. He sat thinking back on what happened, wanting to crawl into a hole. It was truly embarrassing. Luckily, she hadn't discovered his true identity. If she knew, she would probably switch from mild affection to a total block. Greed didn't forget to remind him, like punching his ears, buy decent clothes. Dressing like this, meeting her, she'd be totally disappointed. Just when he was torn between dressing well or eating, the blacksmith owner suddenly appeared with eyes sparkling like he just found an exclusive agent. Rumor had it Fate soloed the entire adventurer group in the guild. The blacksmith wanted to utilize that movie cool image to promote his store's gear. Hearing this, Fate thought he was being sponsored and nodded eagerly like signing a modeling contract. A few days later, he received an extremely cool outfit. One look, and you knew he was a lucky main character. But before he could rejoice, the blacksmith handed him a bill for 80 gold coins. Both he and Greed froze as if frozen, only one sentence remaining in their heads. Thought it was sponsored though. Luckily, the blacksmith discounted it to half, so he accepted paying him. Because of this, tonight he had to carry a hungry stomach back. Just then, he saw a group of people gathering in large numbers in front of a tavern. It turned out there was a waitress looking very beautiful and sweet named Iris. Just seeing her, he felt mesmerized. Unable to look away, she even approached and called his name while he was wearing a mask. From her words, he realized she possessed a mortal sin skill like him. When sitting together, she revealed she possessed the lust skill, and anyone hit by her charm would fall madly in love with her. Fate was trying very hard to restrain himself because she kept flaunting her too grapefruits in front of him. Iris said she had followed him from the capital when she knew he activated gluttony. She intended to approach, but then thought she and he would meet again anyway. He immediately asked if she knew mine. Actually, she knew mine but wasn't close friends because she knew flat-chested people usually hated well-endowed people like her. Now she wanted to thank him for helping her destroy the giant monster last time, although she didn't know who the culprit planting that egg was. According to her, there were still many monsters like that in Gallia. With the current weak night forces, they couldn't destroy them, so now she had to discuss a very important matter with him. She admitted that besides possessing a mortal sin skill, she was also the guardian of the kingdom. Everything she did put the kingdom's interest first, so she had a plan to make the kingdom prosperous for 1,000 years. Then she wanted Roxy to die on the Gallia continent. Hearing this, Fate slammed the table and appeared extremely angry. Iris explained that every time a monster is destroyed, hatred accumulates, and gradually, over years, intelligent monsters are born. With humans it is the same. In the past, the Holy Night Cause acted like overlords oppressing the people so much that hatred accumulated like a pressure cooker. But currently, Roxy is the national holy night loved by all the people. So if she dies, the pent-up hatred will explode, and she herself will become a vessel to absorb all that hatred, then transform into a new entity with power. Ultimate, hearing this sent chills down his spine. He couldn't accept the scenario of her going from idol to final boss. What was worse was this plan had been secretly implemented for a long time like an undisclosed project. Now he only had one choice, think of a way to save her, regardless of who the enemy was, monster, human, or god in disguise. And he vowed that even if he had to fight the whole world, he would protect her to the end. She just received hot news that a team specializing in collecting rare materials had mysteriously disappeared in a valley in Gallia. Without hesitation, she immediately summoned the group and ordered preparation for a rescue mission. Meanwhile, Fate was busy shopping for weapons. He returned to the blacksmith shop to ask the owner to make a new scabbard worthy of his level, as he couldn't let a premium sword wear an old scabbard. The blacksmith scratched his head saying to make this scabbard required magic crystal from Gallia. Hearing that, Fate nodded without hesitation and decided to set off to find materials. Unexpectedly, it coincided perfectly with the valley she was heading to, so he set off first. Arriving, he started sweeping monsters like a giant vacuum cleaner. Greed was transformed into a fancy magic shield helping block every attack. Furthermore, he even used the shield as an attack weapon. Wherever he smashed, monsters vanished. Meanwhile, Roxy's group just set foot in Gallia, but before they could orient themselves, the compass stopped working, turning into a portable decoration, causing the group to drift in a land without Google Maps. Moreover, today was very cloudy, so they couldn't determine direction, making Miria very annoyed, looking up to scold the damn clouds. Roxy said she had another way. Go to where monsters appeared because they often appeared in large valleys. That night, Fate rested at a cliff to prepare for the next day's battle. In his sleep, he met the girl inside the monster from the other day again. The girl said something to him, then he was taken to a place full of corpses of monsters he had previously destroyed. Even those whose lives he took appeared to drag him down. Then he started awake and discovered it was just a dream. Simultaneously, he sensed an intelligent monster was very close. Using night vision, he saw for salamander dragons approaching him. Fate immediately switched greed to magic bow form and shot the first one, injuring it. But Fate found it strange because instinctively dragons should flee when injured, yet they rushed forward as if controlled by someone. Roxy's camp was also suddenly attacked by dragons. When Roxy woke up, she saw everyone surrounded from all sides, and soon they spewed fire, burning the whole camp. A dragon attacked Roxy, but luckily Mugen responded in time. Miria immediately used her fire sword to rush and attack that dragon, but it was ineffective, and the dragon knocked Miria far away, injuring her so she couldn't stand. In the dangerous situation, Fate appeared to protect Roxy and Miria in time, seeing them rushing in increasing numbers. Fate used the magic sword and slashed each one neatly. Fate's skill display made Roxy's group marvel, and after being saved by the expert, Roxy thanked him. Miria was still sulky because initially she didn't ask him to help. Mugen had to remind her before Miria reluctantly said, thanks a lot. Roxy also introduced another holy knight in the group named Northern. The salamanders had strange patterns, so everyone in the group thought this case was indeed very suspicious. Mugen said normally intelligent monsters wouldn't attack in groups, so this time it was as if they came just to find Roxy, but she thought this was probably just a coincidence. Northern commented that since the heavenly dragon awoke, monsters had acted very erratically. The next day, the group reached the Great Valley of Gallia to find materials. Seeing Roxy being friendly with Fate, Miria had a fit of jealousy and demanded to carry Roxy away to rescue teammates first, even shaking hands to say goodbye to Fate. Miria did it for Roxy, and when his hand touched Miria, his mind reading skill activated. Unexpectedly, Miria saw Fate as a bug and wanted to chase him away as soon as possible. The air in the valley was very fresh, making Fate feel comfortable, but seeing petrified monsters, Fate felt a bit creeped out. He even hallucinated that he would be petrified like them. According to the blacksmith, magic crystal is something that emits a pale purple color. Fate searched forever, but couldn't see anything like that. Just then, mine also appeared in the valley area, but when chasing after her, Fate lost track of her. Moreover, he discovered a giant chimera right where he stood. Greed said this one was just a test subject, so they had no core. But observing the surroundings, Fate noticed the number of chimeras wasn't just one, and it seemed others had woken up as some rocks were broken. Fate was sure this was all caused by someone. Suddenly, a strong vibration appeared in the valley in Roxy's direction. Fate abandoned finding magic crystal to run to her. At this moment, Roxy's group was dealing with very strong chimeras. Because her team didn't have enough combat power, they could only endure their attacks. And just as it prepared to attack Roxy, Fate intervened in time to help. He used the magic bow to attack two chimeras, but they were unfazed. However, their regeneration speed was very slow, not equal to the one last time. Their cores were just brains, not humans. So, Fate joined with Roxy to rush straight at them to destroy the cores. One used its hand to cover the core, so Fate attacked its legs, creating conditions for Roxy to move up and finish the core with Aaron's swordsmanship. Meanwhile, Miria was screaming miserably because she had to resist the chimera's fire breath. This time saved by Fate again, Miria had to surely thank him. Roxy reminded everyone to run to a safe place first. She and Fate would handle the remaining chimera. Words finished, both held weapons rushing up to coordinate combat, and Fate felt very happy because this was the first time he fought beside Roxy like this. Only one left, but Roxy was out of breath. Suddenly, this chimera flew into the air, so the two planned to finish it when it touched the ground. Suddenly, this one destroyed the ground, causing the two to fall below. In the dangerous situation, Fate tried to catch Roxy's body, then decided to use his own body as a cushion to help Roxy land safely. Fate woke up hearing Roxy whispering his name while she lay still on his lap. He felt not okay at all because Fate's mask fell to the ground, so he had to scramble to put it on. Luckily, she just woke up and hadn't discovered Fate yet. He quickly calmed down and told Roxy the monsters both just fought were chimeras. They were monsters created by Gallia 1,000 years ago. All this information he got from a girl living in Gallia. Hearing this, Roxy guessed immediately it was the axe-wielding girl who knocked the Lord flying. According to rumors, she traveled with a masked young man, so surely it was no stranger anymore. Then Roxy stared at Fate's face, making him very embarrassed. Roxy said his aura resembled someone she knew, and although that person was in the capital, it felt like he was beside her. Roxy wondered if they were apart. Was he happy? Fate affirmed that surely his heart was very happy receiving so much care from Roxy. Just then, the gluttony state inside Fate unexpectedly activated. Not wanting Roxy to see this scene, he had to run outside. Simultaneously, Fate smelled that chimera coming very close. He immediately switched to Psy form, then found a way to approach it. But when close, Fate saw Roxy's silhouette in the chimera's core. Knowing this was an illusion, Fate frantically slashed the monster into pieces. After it was just a messy pile, Fate discovered the monster had patterns like the salamanders. Assuming Iris was the mastermind, Fate felt very hateful towards her. Roxy ran to Fate just as the cave collapsed. Fate timely used the shield formed from petrified monsters to shield her. Roxy returned safely, making Miria very happy, and Fate felt relieved that he protected Roxy. But the story didn't stop here, as another masked person was about to appear. A few days later, Roxy unexpectedly called Fate to town and challenged him to a duel. Turns out lately Fate unintentionally became the center of a series of brawls in town, although he wasn't the instigator, because he sent quite a few troublemakers to early retirement. She still decided to punish him. She gave two choices, hearing which one would only want to cry. 1. Join the army. 2. Sit in meditation to reflect in jail. Of course, Fate would never agree to follow the restrictive path of a gatekeeper soldier, so he had to step into a duel with Roxy to keep his short-lived freedom. As soon as the match started, both rushed at each other with swords in hand, but after just a few moves, Fate started sweating. Roxy's swordsmanship was sharp, not to be trifled with, and moved like surfing waves. Fate could only jump back and forth. Because of these sword pads, Fate's mask was cracked. Roxy said she would expose his face. Finishing her words, Roxy rushed in, launching an extremely fast slash, forcing Fate to retreat to keep distance. And she encouraged that if he didn't want to reveal his face, he must unleash all his power. Fate immediately enhanced the sword in his hand with magic crystal ore. Seeing this technique, Roxy thought Fate used to be a holy knight. But Fate replied he was just a warrior. Finishing his words, Fate zoomed to Roxy with extreme speed, making her struggle to defend, but she was still pushed back by Fate's sword. Just then, Fate saw the necklace Roxy wore was made of the stone he gifted her before, so Fate lost focus and let Roxy knock his sword away. Roxy won. Furthermore, Roxy saw Fate's moves and movement were exactly taught by Aaron. Before coming here, Aaron revealed that Fate was carrying a great pain in his body, so she also wanted to do something to help him, but Fate refused because this was his personal matter. Fate also understood Roxy was too kind, so he couldn't drag her into his affairs. At this time, Mugen also came to Fate to chat with him. Mugen said he could understand the operating principle of the chimeras. 13 generations of Mugen's family focused on researching lost techniques of the Gallia continent, and his daughter named Mimir was also an excellent researcher. Hearing this, Fate suggested bringing the chimeras back for Mimir. Maybe they could find some secret. But Mugen thought Fate wanted to get acquainted with his daughter, so he chased him away, causing him to lose his sandals running. Meanwhile, Mimi was in the research room, receiving news that Ruffle of the Vlaric family was focusing on researching the Philosopher's Stone, so Mimi flipped through the National Book and concluded what Ruffle did was too dangerous because the Philosopher's Stone could take over the user's body and mind. Fate recalled the conversation with Mine before parting that if he didn't achieve new power, he couldn't fight the heavenly dragon. Just then, Fate heard the town siren. Monsters poured out of Gallia on a large scale, signaling their march had officially begun. So Roxy gathered all warriors to prepare for a life and death battle. As soon as Fate reached the city wall, he saw Roxy leading the royal army to intercept the monsters, so he activated semi-gluttony, ready to support her. Just then Greed felt something coming very close. Fate used his gluttony eye to observe and saw indeed something like a whale moving very fast. At this rate, it would crash straight into Roxy, so Fate switched his weapon to magic bow form. This time, he would apply the limit-breaking technique Aaron taught. Then Fate fired an arrow enhanced with range and penetration, and his arrow forced the monster to surface from the ground. Unexpectedly, it also had patterns like the monster's Fate just destroyed. After using Upraisal, Fate knew this monster was an intelligent slime. All stats were over 10 million, so even Holy Knights had to be wary. Its main skill was Acid Rain, so Fate raised the magic shield to defend. Not only acid, but the slime also possessed corrosion magic. If Fate attacked it with melee weapons, he would catch a pile of acid melting his body. Instantly, Fate switched to magic bow form and sacrificed 10% stats. Then Fate fired a fire attribute arrow at the slime, but it wasn't destroyed. Instead, it split into small parts. Their body parts blocked Fate, so he had to use Aaron's ultimate move to wipe this bunch out in one blow. Its real body ran towards Roxy, so he had to chase immediately. Fate blocked the slime's path, then prepared an arrow with massive destructive power, and when the slime poked its head out of the ground, he aimed straight at its core and fired. Clearly Fate's arrow defeated the slime and Gluttony activated, bringing its stats to him. Yet this slime was still standing tall in front of him, not to mention another masked person appeared near him. Fate thought it was Northern in disguise, so he rushed to attack. Unexpectedly, the opponent possessed a mortal sin weapon named Black Gunblade Envy and controlled the slimes ready to engage with him. Turns out this bunch could split both core and body, and he used the gunblade to boost their combat power. A slime swallowed Fate completely without him being able to dodge. Afterwards, Fate walked out of the slime pile safely because Fate had gained the slime skill, so his body was no longer corroded. Fate used the magic bow to attack the opponent but couldn't surpass his shield. When using Upraisal, he saw the opponent's stats had reached the highest realm of humanity domain of E. Therefore, Fate's ordinary attacks were all repelled. Fate switched to magic sword form for melee combat, but he blocked Fate's slash and knocked him far away. Then he used the gun to attack, forcing Fate to raise his shield to defend. However, Fate was still slightly injured and the power gap was too large. In a dangerous situation, Fate had to use the final method. He accepted paying everything for gluttony to increase his power. Immediately after, Fate officially reached the stat realm of a superhuman. Simultaneously, he thanked the opponent because thanks to him, he got this power. Immediately after, Fate used very high speed to rush at him. And when this guy kept distance attacking, Fate continued moving forward. To get close to him, Fate used rocks to create a smoke screen, then approached and slashed his mascot. Unexpectedly, this guy was Northern, the one supposed to be Roxy's teammate. While Fate hadn't understood what happened, he blew a whistle. The legendary heavenly dragon suddenly appeared and flew straight toward Roxy. Knowing this guy wanted to destroy Roxy at all costs, Fate was forced to turn back to save her. Northern gave him exactly 30 seconds to run to Roxy before too late. Meanwhile, Roxy's team was surrounded by galleon monsters on all sides, and when the heavenly dragon appeared, Roxy looked up to the sky begging her father to grant her strength. But before its terrifying attack, Roxy completely didn't know how to defend. Seemed like everything would be wiped out in a blink. Fate appeared in time, standing in front of Roxy with the magic shield in hand. Even the heavenly dragon's next attack was blocked by Fate alone using the shield, but the pressure from the collision caused Fate's mask to shatter. Roxy dared not believe her eyes, trembling, asking if it was Fate standing before her. Fate only quietly turned his head back and gave a gentle smile, greeting Roxy. After a long time apart, Fate had now leveled up to be able to transform into the magic shield himself, without needing Greed to transform anymore. Or Greed transformed independently. Not only that, he countered extremely powerfully, repelling the heavenly dragon's terrifying attack, pushing it back. But when Roxy saw Fate's red eyes glowing like super bright flashlights, she involuntarily felt chilled. Fate only had time to bow his head, apologizing to Roxy for hiding his secret all this time, then turned and ran swiftly towards the dragon, leaving Roxy standing like a statue, her heart tangled like silk. Fate didn't know the heavenly dragon had healed to full HP, and Northern appeared from somewhere, standing beside it as if controlling the dragon boss with brain waves. Picking up the sword, Fate and Greed combined to launch a light slash, a special technique called Unlimited imprisonment capable of temporarily locking the movement of all living creatures. Thanks to this, the heavenly dragon was held down long enough for Fate to focus on dealing with Northern. However, entering the 1v1 duel, Fate quickly realized he was being pushed back constantly. The reason wasn't because Northern was too strong, but because Fate was consuming enormous mana to maintain unlimited imprisonment holding the dragon. Truly, after carrying the team, it was his turn to be exhausted. On the other hand, Northern was also one who reached the realm, so he wasn't ordinary at all. After a bout of sword fighting, Northern started realizing Fate could only maintain the unlimited imprisonment move when standing close enough to the heavenly dragon. Grasping that weakness, he baited Fate to attack, then seized the opportunity to counter with an extremely powerful slash, taking Fate's arm, making him scream in pain. Northern triumphed, thinking the battle ended here, but he didn't expect Fate's sword unexpectedly pierced through his stomach. Turns out Fate just cast an extremely sophisticated illusion magic, making Northern believe he won. And now Fate gifted him his arm as a farewell present to hell. Just then Gluttony activated, helping Fate seize all of Northern's stats. In his subconscious, Fate met Luna again, the girl who used to be the core of the Chimera before. She thanked Fate for liberating her through death, and now Luna would stay in Fate's body to help suppress the Gluttony storm. However, she also warned that if Fate destroyed the heavenly dragon too, the immense power would cause him to be swallowed by Gluttony and no longer be himself. Right then Greed also appeared. He reminded that the battle out there wasn't over yet, and both must return quickly. Fate thanked Luna for the warning, then decisively affirmed no matter what, he would still destroy the heavenly dragon. As soon as Fate and Greed appeared on the battlefield, it was also when unlimited imprisonment broke completely. Since Fate only had one hand left, he said he needed to end the battle as fast as possible, then unexpectedly threw Greed straight at the heavenly dragon's face, making him speechless. Immediately after, Fate jumped up, launching a punch with overwhelming force, stunning the dragon. While it stood still, Fate used appraisal and discovered its stats far exceeded human reach. However, Fate still decisively leapt into the air and launched a powerful slash, causing one of the heavenly dragon's wings to fall off. Then he quickly slashed the remaining wing, causing the monster to completely lose flight ability and fall straight to the ground. However, the heavenly dragon still managed to accumulate magic to launch a counterattack, but Fate immediately enhanced all muscles to block this power stream. Fate delivered a critical sword strike, splitting the heavenly dragon in two halves. Immediately after, the Gluttony skill activated, causing his body extreme pain. He knew he was about to be swallowed and become a disaster more dangerous than the heavenly dragon. Just then Mine appeared. She remembered the promise to Fate. If one day he lost control, she would personally finish him. And Fate also reminded her to act before it was too late. Mine raised the axe, preparing to strike down, when Roxy suddenly rushed to stop her. She didn't accept Fate dying. Even facing danger, Fate didn't want Roxy seeing this pathetic form of his. But she shed tears and said no matter who Fate became or what power he carried, she would always accept him, and he mustn't give up on himself. Miraculously, just by Roxy's embrace and sincere words, the Gluttony storm seemed to subside. Too exhausted, Fate collapsed on Roxy's lap in peace. That day, the Royal Adventurer team held a feast celebrating the victory over the heavenly dragon. Fate slept straight for many days. When he woke up, his left arm was gone. It was bandaged very carefully by someone, and the first person appearing was Iris. She told Fate he slept for a whole week, but he still kept a guarded attitude, not fully trusting her. Immediately after, Greed was handed back to Fate, and he immediately scolded him a slap for daring to abandon him during combat. Iris said she had to go back to the center of Gallia to retrieve Greed for him. At that time, Mine was busy with something else, so she couldn't bring Greed back. Turns out that Northern guy was just a controlled puppet. The host controlling him was the black gunblade Envy he held. Hearing this, Fate asked Mine if she destroyed it yet, but Mine replied that mortal sin weapon cannot be destroyed, so Mine took the sword and threw it flying into the sky out of sight. Hearing this, Fate remarked that this girl was truly brainless. Through the battle defeating the heavenly dragon, Iris witnessed Fate's true ability, so she wanted to borrow his power to restore this nation. Of course, Iris promised not to touch Roxy anymore, because initially, the plan to sacrifice Roxy belonged to the Gunblade Envy, not her. Moreover, Iris didn't give Fate the right to refuse, because the mission of those carrying mortal sin skills is to protect the nation. But before doing anything, she wanted Fate to restore his arm first. Hearing this, Fate was very surprised, not expecting his arm was about to grow back. Iris urged the group to leave before Roxy returned, because just hearing Roxy's name earlier, the gluttony in Fate surged. Meanwhile, Roxy's army was still training very enthusiastically while she bid farewell to everyone first to visit Fate. Roxy bought some extra grapes or fruit, but when opening the room door, Fate was nowhere to be seen. On the table appeared a letter left by Fate. He apologized to Roxy for hiding his gluttony skill all this time. Finally, Fate thanked Roxy and promised her one day very soon he would definitely return. After reading, Roxy also recalled the first time she met Fate. Back then Fate really hated holy knights because he was frequently beaten by them. Only Roxy stepped up to apologize. Furthermore, she bought Fate some food. Seeing his stomach rumbling, Fate shared he had no parents anymore. Although having no place to return, Fate affirmed that he could still survive in this capital. Since then, Fate gave Roxy a lot of motivation to become a holy knight loved by the people, and Roxy promised that when meeting Fate again, she surely would be much stronger. Raphael received news from subordinates that the one killing his brother was Fate. But he didn't care anymore and returned to his lab with the Philosopher's Stone. He was preparing a plan targeting someone. Meanwhile, Fate sacrificed 40% of his stats to use the healing skill to restore the lost and afterwards, Mine and Iris continued their journey on the Gallia Continent, while Roxy and her expeditionary army bid farewell to Babylon to return to the capital. The anime ends here. If you liked it, please like and subscribe to support me. See you again.